Welcome everyone to episode 6 of Retro Encounter. That's right, you heard me, episode 6. There's no dash this month. We had tremendous issues. We already recorded a 6th one. It somehow disappeared. I blame it on ghosts. So we're kind of shortening it up, kind of get back on track. So this will be a one-time episode, unfortunately, on a wonderful game that is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I am your host, Josh Curry. With me is a wonderful cast. Davi Tesnovich.
Hey everybody.
Peter Triezenberg.
Hello.
Marcos Gaspar.
Howdy.
And for his first time officially, second time unofficially, Chris Gebauer.
Hey everybody.
So like I said, unfortunately this will be just a one episode, so we're going to be cramming all sorts of information. For those of you that want us to stay on topic, probably going to have to actually do it today because we have a lot to go through. So let's get going once again. What is everybody's history with the series? Why don't we start with the newcomer, Peter?
I have literally never played a Castlevania game before this one, and before this podcast. This is my first time playing through one.
And you haven't even played anything even from the series, correct? Like,
No.
or not even the series, but I mean like the genre.
No, I was almost entirely new to this. I've been familiar with Castlevania and with Metroidvania, just kind of from a historical standpoint, but I never actually sat down to play one until now. And it was an interesting experience. I had a really hard time with it at first.
So yeah, I'm pretty happy that the last podcast somehow disappeared. It adds a little bit of mystery to this. But the one thing I am sad that we lost was we really ragged on Peter because he was trying to figure out what this game actually was.
You guys are so mean.
Yeah, because outside of him, everybody else has at least played a Castlevania game, with the exception of me. All of you, Davey, Marcos, and Chris, you've played this game too.
I had specifically played this game. This was my first Castlevania game about 2 years ago, and I've since played it a few times because I really liked it. But I had never played a Castlevania game before Symphony of the Night, and like Peter, I know the significance of the series. I guess I'd been at friends' places when I was a kid and seen some of the early NES offerings, specifically 2. Yeah, and I'd played Metroidvania games like Outland or Guacamelee and other stuff, but more
games.
contemporary versions. It wasn't until I played Castlevania Symphony of the Night that I hunted down a Super Metroid cart and played that and stuff like that.
I kind of had a similar, I guess, in a certain way. I had gotten Castlevania. That was the game I got when I first bought my Game Boy Advance. It was Circle of the Moon? Sounds right. And I was intrigued, but not enthralled, and then I got Super Mario World for the GBA, and that kind of everything else halted, and I just played everything Mario for as long as I could.
Solid.
Yeah, I'm not actually that
Super
upset
Mario
about
World.
it. Yeah.
Amazing.
And then it wasn't until the 360 with Shadow Complex, and that was like my first really. I dived in. I loved that game, 100%. I did all the crazy speed runs. I did everything there is to do in that game, and that's where I was like, oh, I have Castlevania, which is supposedly basically the same game. Let's go back and check that out. And then I systematically went through all the GBA games and all the DS games. So it's more just that was what was available to me, and
Yeah, for sure.
that's how I fell in love with Castlevania. So it was nice for me to be able to go back and really go to the roots of the whole series.
Yeah.
What about you, Davey?
Well, I was never really into like old school Retrovanias, like before they became Metroidvanias. When I was in high school, my friend eventually got a copy of Symphony of the Night, and after the band Malice Miser did a song titled Symphony of the Night, and like they cosplayed as Castlevania characters, and so I ended up borrowing that, and I played through it like once back when I was a teen, but I never really touched another Castlevania game until like Harmony of Dissonance and Aria of Sorrow, like on the GBA, kind of like Josh.
They're
And then-
so good.
Yeah, they really are. And all the DS games as well. Well, there's like one or two of the DS ones that are kind of middling, but like I've also systematically played through all those games. And yeah, I like Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I guess started it all when I was a teenager. I was really enthralled with this game for sure.
What about you, Brawler, Mr. Gaspar?
I started the series on the first Castlevania game, Castlevania. From there, played like 1, 2, and 3 Super Castlevania, and worked my way up until I didn't play Symphony of the Night first. I actually played Portrait of Ruin, And that's when I thought, hey, I want to give the first Metroidvania game a shot. And then I tried Symphony of the Night and fell in love with it immediately.
So you actually have a really nice perspective then, because you got to play through as Richter and have him as a main character.
Yes.
Which is, there's a certain part of me that wishes I had, back in the day, actually played the PSP version that came out with the Dracula X Chronicles.
Oh, yeah.
Because
that's a good one.
That would have been such a good transition of, I get to experience Richter, I understand everything that is there, and then move on. And I could see that being, the whole beginning of the game being a much more interesting, like, blowing your mind of, like, this is somebody that I played as, I have this attachment to. And then all of a sudden, oh, well, what's going on? And why am I not him? And then, oh, is he bad?
Yeah, what's going on with this character?
Right, and you'd have that investment, which would have been actually really nice, I think.
You would have got to play Dracula X, which is great.
I'll take your word for it.
It is a really great game. I remember hunting that down in the waning days of the PSP, and it's great.
It's a good and
great.
Yeah. So yeah, we're just gonna roll right through. Peter, first impressions, go.
What is this game and what am I doing? I really liked the opening of it, and I knew it was coming. I knew the whole, you play through it for a portion, and Alucard is super powerful, and he moves really gracefully, and I'm taking down these giant wolves in one hit, and I'm like, yeah, this is fun. And then Death shows up, and like a jerk, he steals all your stuff, and now all of a sudden you have to like slap a skeleton in order to get your first weapon back. Yeah. And that right there was when I realized I was going to start having some real trouble with this. Because I'm used to playing 3D action adventure titles, but again, I was totally new to the whole Metroidvania thing. So, and plus I think Alucard, his attack height is like slightly higher than where you think it's going to be.
He's too high for some of the smaller enemies, which makes it difficult. Like the table that has the floating cups or whatever.
Yeah, those things are jerks.
That stupid little like bouncing imp gremlin thing.
Mm-hmm.
You mean the Fleaman?
Yeah, the Fleaman.
Sure. Yeah, the Fleaman. Yeah.
Those enemies, I hate them.
Yeah, when it's not on the same level as you, it makes it very difficult, I feel like. And then I've had an issue too, and I'm not sure if this is, which we didn't go over, we usually do, but play on the Vita. I occasionally have the issue where I go low to attack instead of actually attacking horizontally. I do this weird angle attack.
Yeah.
You mean the low diagonal?
Yeah. And that seems to never work when I want it to, except for when I absolutely don't want it to happen. That's when it pops up.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of adds into kind of a little bit of the frustration of not being able to control your elevation of attack sometimes. Which I just solved that by throwing a boatload of knives all the time.
Oh, my favorite sub-weapon is the Holy Book, because I just scream, "The power of Christ compels you," at my foes.
That is one solution, absolutely.
It works. It's one of the best AoE abilities. I guess what are we all playing it on? I was playing it on a Vita like Josh, but I switched to my PS3 about midway through.
And we were talking about this in the pre-show, which I'm having the same issue. I'm playing the Vita, and I had some kind of, the game kind of chunks up where it has some issues with loading. And if I had my PS3 worked, I probably would have switched over as well.
I'm also playing it on Vita, and to Josh's point, it's usually in transitions from screen to screen. There's a little bit of slowdown at times, especially later in the game. Really, the main part, the frustration of slowdown there, is the transitioning from zone to zone with those hallways and getting to warp zones. It can get really frustrating, especially if you're backtracking through the entire castle.
What about you, Marcos?
For me, I'm playing on the PS3 version, so I don't experience, I guess, the much on the problems you have. But I don't know. Maybe that lag is kind of nostalgic to how it was intended to be played, with that lag, especially that
chug of the load off the disc.
That wonderful excuse everybody always likes to say, "Oh, nostalgia, it makes it perfect."
I say that with a pinch of sarcasm. Lag is terrible, especially when the life bottle or whatever appears on the screen and everything slows down to a halt.
Oh yeah,
I like that. I don't like that. But Davey, how about you? How are you playing this?
I'm playing on my 360, the 360 port, which is great. And I'm for the first time playing on my arcade stick. which has actually helped a couple things. Like Josh was complaining about how easy it is to get the down and forward attack when you're trying to do just the regular crouch attack, and like that stuff's really easy to determine on the arcade stick. So there's been a couple things that have made it a lot more fun, and a couple things that have been like I kind of wish they were better, like the input parser. But yeah,
it took me forever to
Are
figure out how to
spells
use
better with an
spells.
arcade stick?
Surprisingly, not really. Like
I feel like it would be such
the
a
number.
dream.
The number of frames they give you to do the input are still really super small, and so like that's
Right.
still hard either way. And like the input parser itself seems like just garbage. So it's a lot harder than it needs to be. Like either way, some spells are a lot easier. Like Dark Metamorphosis is a lot easier to do on the stick than it was on the pad for sure.
What does Dark Metamorphosis even do? Because I keep accidentally triggering it when I'm trying to summon like the spirit to help me.
Sure.
What does it do?
It makes it so every time you attack an enemy, and I don't know if it's just enemies, I think it's just enemies that bleed, you regain some HP.
Oh, okay, that's useful.
So you slosh around in their blood like a real cute little guy.
Like a true vampire,
Yeah,
Yeah.
half vampire.
you shouldn't have to do a spell for that. It should just happen naturally.
This should be
Well,
like
he's
It's
only
a
half.
vampire that resents that he's a vampire.
He's a Domkir.
You know, if this game was made today, there would be some kind of like morality meter. Like, choose whether to be a vampire or choose whether to be a Paragon Alucard or a Renegade Alucard.
I'm getting human points.
You chose not to
Human
chew
blood
on Maria. Plus 10 human points. You killed Richter. Minus 99 human points.
Yeah.
Shoot, I forgot my question.
We're going
Well, I was
through
curious what everyone thought about the opening of playing as Richter first before getting into Alucard. Do you like that intro?
That voice
Is it
acting
fun
is
for you?
stuff of legends.
That for sure.
It is
Yeah.
so great.
What is a man?
A miserable
Yeah.
pile of secrets.
And now have at you.
I knew that was coming, and it was still cringeworthy.
Yeah,
I-
it's hard.
I was laughing. I was
Yeah, I think that's the only
It
way
is
you can
so
react is to laugh.
I've been thinking about this, and I think the most genius thing about the way that opened up is like when you're playing around with Richter, and you probably like mess around with some stuff and see what he can do before you go in and actually do the fight. Like you just get the sense that his vocabulary is huge. Like he has so many actions. Like he has that weird useless backflip thing, and he has the slide,
Yep.
the slide jump, and like you're just kind of like wondering what this game is going to throw at you because like this has never been a thing in Castlevania before. And when you start the game as Alucard, yeah, you're super powerful and your stats are really high, but at the beginning of the game, Alucard is like no verbs. Like he can jump and swing a sword, and like that's it. So I feel like if they
He doesn't have all
didn't
those
tease
other
you,
actions.
yeah, if they didn't tease you with that crazy stuff in the beginning, don't laugh at me, bro.
I don't think that's how you're.
No, I'm
supposed to
laughing because I
use the word
agree. It's
verbs.
just
Okay.
absurd.
Yeah. If you
It
didn't get
makes
that little
Richter
tease
so much
at
more
the
fascinating. As a
Yeah,
character
really.
from the get.
Yeah, for sure. And like if you started the game and you were just playing as Alucard who can just jump and swing a sword, I don't think the beginning of this game would really sell you on it the way it does.
See, I understand what you're saying. I respect it. I still think it comes down to the fact, though, you have to put yourself in the place of when this game came out, and I think that's the true beauty of it. I mean, they did a Kojima moment before Kojima was fucking doing Kojima moments.
That's true.
This is Metal Gear Solid 2. Like, this is the tanker.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
because
literally
of
the
it.
exact same thing. And
Yeah.
having no personal attachment to this, like I did to Metal Gear Solid, like that was, I think that's the beauty of it. Like, and I can fully respect it in this regard.
And it's important to note, we were talking beforehand a little bit about Dracula X. You know, we didn't get to play that game until way after the fact, whereas a Japanese audience would have played that game and would have had the attachment to Richter. So to go through that opening again, be reminded of the character, and then go into Alucard, it's kind of like, well, what happened? Was that just there? Why was that there? And as the game progresses and you get reintroduced to Richter, now as
Yeah.
a possible bad guy, And then you have people who go, no, but I remember doing that whole journey with him a few years ago. And like, what's going on?
And they do it smart. They justify him being strong because that's literally the end of the last game.
Yeah.
And so
You get to recap.
yeah, it's actually really fascinating. And even for somebody who, like I said, I did not play that, but having no understanding that history, I immediately find that
Super
compelling.
cool.
I think Davi sent us that link of Kojima playing Symphony of the Night, the devs play thing, and he talked about how they showed off the Richter stage, the final stage Bloodlines thing at TGS when they were advertising for Symphony of the Night. So in a way, yeah, they were doing that whole Kojima moment thing.
Yeah, it's
they were
brilliant.
I think it's really great. Plus, it's a nice little callback.
Was that with Igarashi, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
Koji Igarashi.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I still
Um,
haven't seen that, so that's my bad.
yeah, I still haven't seen that either. Oops.
It's a good video if you have 4 hours to spare.
Yeah, at least Davey, when you put it up, I originally told you I'd probably never watch it.
It's really interesting. He talks about like really little things, like, oh, we had to spend all this time programming the animation for this 3D object in the background, or like he talks about how the little pictures that pop up when you load your save file.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
they were like right before ship, and they were like, hey, we need icons for the save file screen. They're like, everybody make a save icon, and like they were originally just going to use a couple, but they got a bunch of submissions, so they're like, we'll just put them all
Alright,
in there.
that's
And
right.
that's
Is that why it alternates?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
It's just chosen.
Depends on which zone you're in.
Yeah, she asks them like, well, how did you guys program like what determines which one you get? And he said like a lot. It's really random. Like there are a couple that they went in and were like, okay, you'll get this one in this situation, but for the most part it just picks one.
Really?
And
That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
he
It
al-
is fascinating.
He also talked about how like in that opening CGI cutscene, the castle model was actually unfinished, which I can believe.
Good, because
Yeah.
it looks unfinished.
Yeah, because
Yeah, there's no textures on it.
apparently the developers, like the directors or whatever, they told him to like, yeah, we're gonna ship it now, and he's like, wait, but this isn't finished. And they're like, yeah, whatever, go with it.
That was so when I fired it up, I actually forgot about this. When I fired it up at first, I was like, all right, well, I think I know what this looks like. I've heard good things. Like I'm expecting a lot from this game, and the first thing you see is that castle. And I was like,
Yeah.
You're like, yes.
oh, this is gonna be a long month. Oh, that looks terrible. And then it loads in, and immediately the game just looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 2D sprite work is incredible.
And we talked we talked about this before the show, but going like my first experience with it on the DS, what this game is doing, even though it happened 5-10 years beforehand, what is being done in Symphony of the Night could never have been done on any of those DS ports or the DS games. Like the game is brilliant.
Yeah, the fidelity's so through the roof in this game, like both in audio and visuals.
It's super impressive.
And the few moments of 3D, while they're not that jarring, but you can tell it's a much more obvious now than it would have been when the game came out. But they still do a great job with the multiple effects and the parallax on so many of those stages. Again, what we were talking about before, the farther backgrounds, and sometimes it's layered with 3 basically panels of scenery, and it just looks incredible.
That was nice because it was. I came in with super high expectations. I saw that castle and I was like, all right, well, you got to lower these expectations. This isn't going to be what I was hoping. And then for it immediately right after that to like bounce back up, I was like, yeah, okay, this is going to be good.
You're like, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy this came back around. So I thought that was. It's interesting because it's like good. I always when I looked at that castle, I was like that doesn't look done. I'm pretty sure I could probably do something about that looks about that good.
Some 1997 3D art.
Yeah. Good. So that was kind of some first impressions. I want to touch on Marcos being crazy and deciding not to use a weapon.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, well, like for whatever reason, like I found that just attacking with your fists right off the bat was a lot more faster than using a weapon. Mostly because I don't know what's up with the frames, but there's some frames when you're moving forward and attacking, you'll like hit twice while just punching one fist at a time. So I just took the road of getting in everyone's face. that worked out a lot for most of the first beginning of the game, like really well, and I was really surprised with that because I played this game a lot of times before. This isn't my first time playing it, of course, so I knew how or where the characters or monsters were going to move. So I just tried to like judge where they're going to stop and attack them and get in their face.
Yep.
And it's very scary if you try doing this your first time around. I don't recommend it because it's foolish. You'll kill yourself, and then you'll see game over, and death is laughing at you. It's a terrible feeling. But if you played it a lot of times like I have, then I guess it's just second nature knowing when to run into their faces and when not to.
It sounds like fun.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. It's very rewarding, especially the very first boss. Was it Gaibon and Slogger?
Yeah,
Yep. I just let off Tetra Spirit at the front, and I just get on Slogger's face, and I just keep pounding on him, and he eventually goes down very quickly. Dagon, or whatever his name, I forget Gaibon, drops down and just wail on him, and the fight's already over.
Yeah, in all fairness, though, with a weapon that fights over pretty quickly too.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest surprise for me was I did not find basically any point in this game to be overly difficult.
I was about to ask, so yeah, they go down pretty quickly, but literally, can you think of a boss that takes you more than a couple seconds?
No.
Only the one we were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, Galanoff, but
Second
even
half,
that only
that's
takes
really
a couple seconds. Yeah, if you use the Alucard shield, he goes down in like a couple seconds.
And everything goes down in a couple seconds with the Alucard shield.
Yeah, it's
especially the what was it, the what's the name of the boss that you fight, that replica of yourself?
Doppelganger.
doppelganger.
Who's
Yeah,
like
the doppelganger. Yeah, you bring the clock into the fight, and he's affected by the clock, so you just sit there wailing on him while he throws.
Oh, I didn't do that. I died a lot on that fight.
Yeah, so let's touch on how, Peter, you originally did not think this game was easy.
Well, here's the thing, and I eventually got the hang of Symphony of the Night, and it kind of something clicked. I don't know what it was, and I started enjoying it a lot more. But this game has the epitome of a inverse learning curve, if I've ever seen one. It is.
What do you mean?
Because it starts off hard and ends pissy.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I was about to say. Is I don't know if it clicked with you so much as you hit that breaking point of, oh, my numbers are so big, I don't have to worry about anything anymore.
Like all of a sudden, you're walking around and one-hitting these giant monsters that were giving you so much trouble before, and you have like
so
5 or 6 attacks going off at once that are hitting everything on screen, and you have a shield that just insta-kills everything in your path, and like Alucard is a death machine in this game.
So,
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Did everybody find that? Do you find that endearing, or is that
I think
kind of disappointing?
I think it's really cool, and I think it's also indicative of the fact that this was such a change for the Castlevania series. Again, that's only speculation on my part, but I think again they didn't really. This was this was a new frontier for them.
Yeah. The
So
whole
it's not-
leveling system.
Yeah, it's not quite as balanced as it would have been or would go on to become. So in that respect, it's kind of cool. But I can see that being, like, from a purely subjective standpoint, yeah, that is kind of a design problem.
To Peter's
ahead.
comment before about how hard it was starting out, like I remember the first time I played this game, and it was also really hard for me at the beginning. And I know for Marcos and Davey, it's so much more of a breeze, and even for you, Josh. But there is a certain rhythm to this game, and I'm sure it's in a lot of the other Castlevanias that have followed too. But it took me a while to get the hang of that rhythm of how to attack people. You can just kind of bum rush people. You don't have to play a defensive game. In fact, that can usually end up screwing you over in a lot of fights if you kind of back off and try to be patient. And it is kind of crazy because every time I've gone back since that first time playing through, it is now simple from the get-go for me.
Yeah, because
that first playthrough, because now again I understand how everything's going to function. I know, even if I don't know every frame that of a certain boss, I have a good understanding of how I can kind of abuse them at this point.
Right, exactly.
And what items where exist to let me do that if I really needed.
And kind of what you're saying, literally the best way at all times, basically, in this game is to abuse everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
You should not take a break. And that's where. So
Be relentless.
yeah, I'm actually very happy this wasn't. One of the other reasons I'm happy that we didn't have the first podcast, I kind of started ragging on this game.
Yes.
And I'm kind of happy there's no physical record of that anymore.
I think we all are.
But there, and Davey and I were kind of talking about this separately from all of this, but when you come from the GBA games, the DS games, I feel like there's a more sense of strategy. There's parts of those games that are just crushingly difficult. And so to come back to this, a lot of those elements are simplified. And so I think that I kind of got wrapped up in that last time around where it's like I was expecting some sort of difficulty curve. Some sort of, I got through all this, this was easy, I got to this boss and he just crushes me. And I'm going to come back and he's going to crush me again and I'm going to do that 10 more times and I'm finally going to figure it out and he's still going to crush me. And then I finally will get it, and it'll be like, "Holy crap! I'm amazing!" Like that, one of those like moments where you jump up and you just freak out because you beat it. And this game does not have that. And I think I got wrapped up in that last time around, where it's like, this really pissed me off because like I was expecting more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is one of those. Once you get past that point and you start accepting it, once you get into the rhythm of the game, it starts branching out into you're getting actually legitimately good side attacks, you're getting decent gear, you're finding the secret passageways, finding secrets on top of the secrets. Even when you buy a map, there you feel like, oh, there's the map, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, if I go here, there's this new section that wasn't on this map. When it opens up to other concepts and ideas, I think that's where the beauty of the game starts shining. And very quickly, once that happened, like I had a 180-degree change on this game.
It's the nooks and crannies that make this castle so special.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the design sure doesn't.
No.
Like every other iteration of this style of Castlevania has had significantly better castle design, and I know it's really easy to say that in retrospect, but I kind of feel about Castlevania Symphony of the Night like I do about FF7. Like I'm really happy it exists. I'm really glad it brought this style of game into the forefront and like kind of made it mainstream and made it popular and successful. But at the same time, I feel like it is the worst implementation of the genre that has become popularized.
But
Like-
Well,
at the same time,
I have a
there's-
question for
Sorry.
you about that. Sorry, Peter, I just totally cut you off because I'm an awful person.
It's okay. It's okay, Chris. Make your point, Chris.
No, I was just going to say that I'm curious because with the other titles, do they have the inverse of the castle in other of those in the DS games, for example?
No, there's one of the
Is that-
GBA games has an alternate reality, like another dimension castle,
Okay.
but
But is it separate almost entirely from the same layout?
no, it's actually an identical layout.
Oh, it is
It's
just
not-
identical.
It's just not inverted.
Because that's what's
and-
so fascinating about this game is that you have a castle that had to be designed and it allows for a lot of annoyances for sure, but when legitimately just flipped, it's now a whole other world that functions as is, just on top of its head.
Yeah, and
I think you could do that with any Castlevania game though. Like you have the movement tools at the end of all the Castlevania games to be able to do that. If you just flipped it upside down, you don't even need to design it because you designed the character so well.
yeah, and so
That's fair.
I'm going to do something that I do. I think almost on every run of these. I'm going to rag on Zelda.
Okay.
I'm really happy that Castlevania doesn't do that. I
Yeah.
think the whole inverted castle. I can't imagine playing it when the game came out. My mind, I would have freaked out.
That
Right.
would've destroyed me. I
'Cause-
never would have found out how to get there. I probably would have beaten the game just beating Richter and then being like, "Oh, I won." Right?
It's insanely cool. But at the same time, if they ever did that again, it's like, well, okay, well, yeah, well, there's a castle and it's flipped over. Yeah, you've done that before. So I'm really happy they haven't gone back to that, and that's my biggest complaint with Zelda. Is I feel like we tried the same temples, we tried the same rhythm, we tried the same everything.
It was the same well too many times to run.
Yeah, and I know everybody will argue, well, technically all the Castlevania games, all the GBA and DS games, it's the same game. And that's the other thing I kind of bashed with Symphony of the Night is like, they haven't changed the formula since back then. They've made things more interesting. I think they've improved and polished. But at the core, it's the exact same thing. But at the very least, they didn't take, hey, this was really cool, everybody liked it, let's do that same thing again.
Right.
So I'm actually overall happy they don't do the inverted castle.
Yeah, like every iteration, yeah. That'd be
Yeah.
fun.
And
Oh.
that's why I think Order of Ecclesia is personally my favorite Castlevania game.
So good.
Because it fully went and just broke the mold again.
Yeah. No, it was great.
And that was the first time I can honestly say, there's we're gonna go in a portrait. This is really cool. There's two of us. We're doing there's all these different interesting little twists, but I almost equate them to like Madden twists. Like, oh, we had to change the defense, or we had to throw in some sort of blocking mechanic, and they were just little fine-tuned things that were gonna be for that one game and thrown out.
Right.
And if they would have kept going on beyond Order of Ecclesia, that was something that legitimately they could have built into. This is Metroidvania 2.0.
Yeah, like have it be a sprawling, like multiple castles, world map,
Yes.
that kind of thing. Yeah, that would have been... If they would have expanded on the Order of Ecclesia formula, they could definitely be doing some insane things for now. I see what you're
Yes.
saying. Exactly.
Yeah,
And that's my new dream game, Josh Curry.
Sorry.
Wow.
Well, we're gonna get it on a phone in 5 years.
It's gonna be a pachinko machine.
Why would you do that?
Well, it's Konami, right?
So,
Yeah,
As long as-
pachinko and phones.
yeah, as long as I've already thrown the gauntlet down in that regard, like, another thing about Castlevania Symphony of the Night is, like, a lot of the mechanical refinements that it came from the later games, and usually in the form of glitches, like, the backdash cancels and the backdash crouch cancels and all that kind of mechanical stuff you can do in the later games are not present in Symphony of the Night. So even, like, just the really pedestrian, I guess, literally walking around the castle, just killing random dudes is not as fun in Symphony of the Night as the later installments. And it's like, yeah, this is a good game. It's very influential, and it absolutely needed to happen. But like, I literally never want to play this game again unless I'm Richter.
It just feels that slow to you, and it just gets that aggravating because of it.
It's not slow so much as like, yeah, for all the options Alucard has, like, not many of them are very mechanically powerful or make you feel very mechanically powerful, because like,
Sure.
you'll do the soul stealer or whatever and clear a room, but then you're like, great, yeah, that it cleared a room. It's like in all the other ones, like, you have to go there and you have to fight and you have to know the enemy design. And in this game, like, bosses are a great example because you usually don't see the enemy design before they die. Like,
Yeah.
I can't name the attacks of most of the late game bosses just because they fall down before they get to use their
So
attacks.
fast,
Like, I
yeah.
don't have to learn how to dodge them. I don't have to learn how to deal with them. And like, I don't even need it to be like Josh said, where you die 10 or 20 times, figuring out how the boss works and eventually having a good run. Because like, I don't even have to get to the point where I have to know what the boss does at all.
Yeah,
And,
you
like,
want that
that's
sweet
the
spot between this and like a Dark Souls, where you want to
Well, sure.
understand your boss, but at the same time, you don't want it to be so hard that you're gonna throw your system in frustration if you can't.
Yeah,
get
like a
through it.
Mega Man boss.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
It's-
that's actually a great example.
You know,
Yes.
Josh, it's funny that you mentioned Zelda earlier because I was watching that devs play video, and we think of the whole Metroidvania thing today as like, you know, it's the inspiration for this whole offshoot of 2D side-scrolling exploration games. But according to Igarashi, it seems like Zelda was one of their principal influences when they were
absolutely.
first setting out to create this game. And when I was playing it for the first time, I was thinking it over. Well, I beat this boss, I got a life upgrade, and I got a sweet new piece of gear.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, and
Absolutely.
it's kind of, and I think I wonder if how much of that influence can be seen, since again, a lot of what Davi's talking about, this was their first time making a Castlevania game like this.
Yeah. And,
Does he
and
say specifically Zelda 1 or Zelda 2? I'm curious, sorry.
I don't think he specified which game in the
No,
series.
he just said Zelda.
He
Yeah.
just says Zelda? Okay.
yeah.
which at that time would have been Link to the Past. Probably would have been
Yeah.
their main
Because I guess the
inspiration.
Adventure of Link is kind of like the first Metroidvania game in a way.
Yeah, kind of actually.
So what you're saying is, which I'm really excited for Mike Solosi to hear that Castlevania is a Zelda game. So at the end of the day, all games.
We are not bringing this
Zelda
argument
games.
up again. We are
Um,
not doing this again.
In fact, it's Zelda 2 too.
Oh,
Zelda
okay.
2 too.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad we could clear that up.
Okay, fine. Well, Zelda
Awesome.
2 is the best Metroidvania game. Yeah.
We're not doing that again.
Just to fight you.
Yeah, I honestly, I think the reason Davey it has kind of trepidation to replay it, I guess, is the best way to phrase it.
Sure.
I feel like I'd be the exact same way. As soon as this
Exactly.
month's over, I don't think I ever can come back to this game.
Yeah.
And it is because the genre has moved on. There is so much more to these games now, and I think it's one of those things in a vacuum you can look and respect this game.
Yeah.
And for me, as the first time going through, it's stuff that doesn't bother me.
Right.
But I can totally respect that after you've moved on to other games that have stood on the shoulders of this game, it's hard to come back to the original. So I can completely get that. Thankfully, I don't have that because, like I said, it's my first time through.
One of the things I did say on the Ghost podcast is that
The Phantom
I do
podcast.
feel like
Phantom Pain.
the exploration to discovery ratio in Symphony of the Night is maybe a lot higher than any of the other games. Like I feel like they packed more into the space that they had, and that's cool because there's like always something around the corner. And in the later series, like they'll usually make you work a little more to go and find a cool thing,
Yeah.
which has its pros and cons. But in Symphony of the Night, you always like you turn around and you find a new upgrade, you find a new item. Like
I
so-
felt like I was constantly being rewarded for exploring.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is, I think is key to this, like this type of game.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think you need that feedback loop of
Mhm.
if I look, I can find stuff, and that this game fully sold me when my map was probably filled in like I don't know, more than a quarter but less than a half, and all of a
Okay.
sudden I was like, hey, I can fight Richter right now. And it is because I was a bat and I was flying around just screwing around, and I
And he
walked
got to
through
the
a
room, and you're
door.
like, oh.
And I was like, oh, I could probably, if I beat him, end the game.
Yeah.
And that like really harkens to, like I said, Shadow Complex is my first game. In that game, spoilers for Shadow Complex. So, yeah.
It's an RPG.
But the whole point is like you're stuck on this installation, this army installation. You're trying to save the world. Da da da. Da. Your like pseudo girlfriend gets kidnapped. At one point, you go up on the surface and there's a jeep there. You can get in the jeep and leave. The game ends,
Oh.
and you just
That's cool.
leave.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my god.
And it's one of those things that is like, I don't know, 20, maybe 30 minutes in this game. And the credits roll, game over, you won, congratulations.
You know what that reminds me of? One of the endings in Clock Tower 1. Where the main character can
Oh,
just jump in the
yeah.
car, drive right the heck
Yep.
out of there, leave all her friends behind, just get the heck out.
Yeah, but isn't the
Of course,
the Scissor Man's in there with you?
yeah, that's the thing. But then like it's like roll the credits, end it right there.
And the not a lot of games do that. Like the most recent was Far Cry 4. Again, spoilers for
Yep.
Far Cry 4. You can sit at the beginning of that
was so
game,
cool.
and
Totally an RPG.
if you just sit there for 15 minutes, the game's
If you
over.
if you listen to the antagonist and do what he asks you to do at the beginning, it ends.
And it's brilliant. And it's one of those things, games that have secrets to find that you want to, both a combination of the game being good enough that you want to look for these things, and then also that they just play with your expectations.
That's
Yeah.
where I come to
sorry.
an impasse. That's where I come to an impasse with Symphony of the Night because I get so powerful that I don't have the motivation to go find new stuff. I don't need it. Like I can go beat the game right, like nothing is going to stop me. So I just go, like, because everything just falls down when I walk into it. I don't need to do anything else.
Right, but you've
Fun.
played. How many times have you played this game?
I mean, probably like 3 or 4.
See, and at that point, it's like, you know what? You've gotten your money's worth.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And so,
But I'm
like,
saying, like,
we can
I
turn that
think-
question around to Peter or to me, who's never played this game before, and I guarantee, Peter, you were wandering around, weren't you?
Yeah, I was trying to find where to go and
And
no clue. Like,
if you saw a big hallway and all of a sudden there was like a gap in that map, and you're like, well, now I can fly, did you go back to that corridor as quickly as you could and try to fly up there?
yeah, I did. It was like,
See, and that shows to me that it worked.
You're not wrong, and I'm not trying to say it's like bad, but it's like so much worse at this point. Like I don't get why it's held on a pedestal when it's been done so much better by the same IP over and over.
Because
like I could go back.
It was the game.
I think, Davi, that goes back to your Final Fantasy VII argument. Yeah. Subsequent Final Fantasies did the Final Fantasy VII thing better, but to play Final Fantasy VII, you have to play Final Fantasy VII. Like, that is still an experience that is exclusive to that game, even if other Final Fantasies built on it.
Yeah, and I would love to do this because I'd love to see just how terrible this is. I'd love to record us, I'm not saying we're doing this soon, a top 25 games of all time.
Oh, man.
And legitimately argue it, because the core of that argument always comes down to, and even if like I say screw you, I hate Zelda, like even if we can get past that, the core of the conversation always is it the best game today, or is it the best game that had an influence on the industry?
Game timeline. Yeah.
Yes. And so when you look at things like that, I think there's a very, very rare games like Zelda Link to a Past. That is both.
Or even Zelda 1.
Yeah.
But when you look at stuff like Symphony of Night,
honestly,
there's one that it holds up to, and there's other that's just going to iterate. Same thing with, like, we're going to switch into things I love. Halo. Nobody's going to argue that the shooting mechanics, as you move to each Halo game, progressively get better. But at its core, Halo 1 made all of that possible.
I would say that a lot of people would argue that after 2.
Yeah. But I'm just, like, it's one of those things. Essentially, if the developers are doing even a reasonably decent job, being slightly understanding of what people are liking, they should at least doing a slight polish every time.
And
so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I can go back to other Egavanias. I can't go back to SOTN like that.
But you're going back to Game Boy Advance games, right?
And DS, yeah.
Yeah.
But GTA.
So, I mean, that's as far back as you're going, that's still 5 years later.
And what's interesting, Davi, I'm curious, did you actually, I'm sure you actually mentioned this earlier, and now I'm just forgetting because we all did this, but did you play Symphony when it first came out?
It was probably like early 2000s, so not right when
close.
It came out. Yeah.
So close, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's one thing when we were, you guys were good enough to watch the Iga interview, but for me, even before I knew this was happening in the last year, watching other interviews with that man or people talking about that game, other sites that have done kind of book club playthroughs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, there are people who played this game 80 times, and it still means so much to them. And again, Josh, to your point, a lot of that oh my god moment and how it broke their mind.
Yeah.
And even little things like the Metal Gear Solid reference to that on your memory card, or if it wasn't on your memory card. Like, all those little things, it created this incredible kind of pedestal, this little aura around the game.
Yeah, and I'm glad
it was one of the few 2D titles on PlayStation specifically. Saturn was a 2D machine, and this was this one shining gem on PlayStation.
Yeah.
Rayman looked nice, but it didn't have this kind of fidelity of control, and so people look at it and go like, well, why didn't we have more of these beautiful games, and sprites and all the rest of it? So, sorry. Yeah,
I'm happy you brought up Metal Gear Solid, because Metal Gear Solid is that for me. I've probably beaten that game 25 times.
Far too many times. Yeah, same.
I'm not even joking. Like,
no, neither am I. I play it almost every other year, if not every year.
There was at one point, I remember, I think both my parents were out of town for a weekend. I think I beat the game 3 times in a weekend.
Nice.
Yep.
And it's just one of those things, like, that was my game. That is my comfort food game.
Yep.
And even now when I go back, and I get so pissed off because I can't use sticks.
First-person shooting?
No, like, I go and I, like, sticks and nothing happens. Like, well, why? And then I like, oh, okay, yeah, buttons. Yeah, because we used to play with buttons.
Yeah.
And that still frustrates me, and I've tried multiple of my friends, like, you need to come to my house. We are putting this in. You're going to play the legitimate disc, because that's awesome.
Yeah.
And they can't grasp it. And they're like, I see why this is good. I see, like, where this is, like, wonderful. Like, I can see why this, but I played Metal Gear Solid 4, and, like, I was crawling around and doing all these cool things with camouflage, and, like, why can't it be that?
Or they had a GameCube and Twin Snakes was better.
Yeah, and so and like I feel like this is a really good comparison to that is for those people that are replaying it that still hold it on the pedestal, it was that like earth-shattering moment for them in video games.
And to your point, Metal Gear Solid for me is still that game. It's in my top 5 because it meant so much to me, and I still love it and still, like you do, play it again and again. But I've talked to people who tried playing it recently when they had the collections on PlayStation 3. And they're like, yeah, I couldn't do it. And I hear that and it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I'll do it 5 more times.
Yeah, and I would. And that's why like I have not gotten to yet, but I'm super excited to play Phantom Pain. I already know exactly if I had to write a review what my bullet point statement would be. This is the best game in the series, but is not the best Metal Gear game.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of been the word on the game so far.
And I feel like in some ways that almost like in a twisted way also works for this is this made the foundation that it's at its core it is the best game because of that.
My concern is that I don't like you using the word best for that. I think people often conflate best with favorite or best with most influential, and those are different things.
Sure. That's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, no, but I agree with Davi because I would say it's an incredibly significant game, and for me that makes it wonderful, and I really love it. And I wouldn't put it on like the pedestal for my favorite game of all time, let's say for Symphony of the Night, but I would put it up there because it was enjoyable and I can take into context all the rest of what we're discussing.
Yeah.
But I personally could not say it's my favorite game ever because I find many other games more fun. But especially and I'm a sucker for 2D art, like Vanillaware and other companies. Like I love games that can do sprite work, so that already bumps this one up really high for me. But to Davi's point, it's more. I think he's right. It's not about the best in the series, but definitely significance, importance.
And
those are adjectives that are out.
To your point, I feel like FF7 was different because I feel like there's a really strong argument to be made that even for the time, FF7 was not good.
Okay, we're not touching that. We're pulling back.
No, I feel like a lot of
No.
I feel like a lot of people put FF6 before FF7. I feel like that's
no, that's true.
Yeah,
but
there is not a series in the world that there's going to be more arguments about which number is the best. That will be a separate podcast. I guarantee you that will be a conversation at some point. We're not doing it today.
All right, just
rolling back to Castlevania. Let's actually get back to some of the mechanics. Let's talk about the inverted castle.
Okay.
Yes.
The castle where they always misspell the word reverse.
Yes.
Reverce.
Yeah, that actually sounds right to me though.
Reverse.
How's it supposed to be spelled?
There's an S.
My English major self is crying right now. You can't. But there are tears.
Are you saying it's not spelled reverche?
Reverche.
Oh yeah, maybe that's what they were going for.
It's actually a fancy clothing brand that only Alucard wears. Reverche.
Small disappointment, and I think this is where it shows the age. I would have really liked for his clothes to change when you put different things on him.
Yeah,
Cloak does.
only the cloak.
Oh.
I mean, he also has platform shoes. I think makes him an inch taller.
Yep. Secret.
I mean, it's pointless, but it's really funny.
I did not notice that.
I was thinking really hard about what makes the inverted castle cool. I think because I was replaying it again, I realized it's kind of because it gives the first time player a chance for them to be like, oh, I know the secrets, and have that experience where they can go and be like, oh yeah, that wall over there, I got it. Or, oh yeah, there's gonna be a dude right there. And like they just remember that from the first castle. And so you kinda get that.
But also what's going to be different this time when you turn that corner, because there's
Right.
familiarity, but now, I mean, especially with monster design, a lot of it's different, and then some of them aren't. But there's also a lot of fun play, and I love in games, whether it be, character action games or others, when you meet enemies that you faced early in the game that were hard or harder, and then you fight them again, like talking about Slogra and Gaibon. And then when you go into the inverse castle, and then there's rooms with tons of them, and you're just one-shotting them. Or
even like
three hits, and you're just like,
the armor,
is no problem.
They put armor on wargs and stuff.
Yeah.
Or Fleeman now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great.
I feel like there's a bit of a difficulty spike when you first get to the castle, and it's not very much because Alucard is so powerful. But right after the Richter fight, right when you first get into the inverted castle, I think all of a sudden the game starts being a bit more challenging.
Well, yeah, if you take, the damage you take is, there's a big spike, like the damage output of enemies, but you can still destroy them really quickly.
Yeah.
So you are more vulnerable, but you still are a DPS machine.
Right. Well, besides that, the number of healing items you can carry in this game is just unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like, I've never used one, but I think about it sometimes, like, I could just live forever.
Yeah, you could just go library card, buy a ton of potions, and be fine forever.
Well, and that's actually kind of sad because I feel like, I have to imagine this is the case for you, Peter. You struggle so much in that beginning portion, and you wish that you had a bunch of potions, but about the time that you make it to the library is about the time you don't really actually need potions ever again.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's the first time I was like, hey, I actually have stuff. This all could be easier. Like, all my problems are going to be solved. And you're like, oh, I hit that last guy, level up, and then as I level up, I grab this, and this, and boom, fine, problem solved. Don't need potions. Don't need cakes and tarts and whatever else they want me to eat.
Yeah, there was one time I
tried playing closer.
No, I was just saying, there was one time I was exploring, and I was actually fairly low health because I was taking a lot of hits, and then I found a full life upgrade, and I was just like, great, I'm good.
Yeah, awesome.
Basically, every time that you even possibly are going to get close to death, something like that happens, and it doesn't matter.
It's because like the whole reward system from the first castle, like now they just throw like life stuff at you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
And that's where we were talking at the very beginning about the progression of difficulty. It's so flipped on its head. Because that first half an hour, I guess, approximately,
sounds right.
Yeah.
Like, I could see that just being punishing for someone that's never played this game before. And then as soon as you get past that, it's like, all right, well, got it, we're good. I almost wished that first half hour. I could see a lot of people, like, if there was trophies back in the day, and you go on your PS4 and you're like, oh, percentages get here. I could see so many people just dumping out after that first half hour. You'd be like, nope, I can't. This is stupid. I'm gonna return this. I'm gonna trade this in.
Yeah, for me, I this time playing the game, I haven't used any spells, and so there are certain rooms with certain enemies in the inverted castle, like the witches, who can be really annoying for me. But to your point, you hit a stride, and you just never really need to heal. Because there's always going to be something to help you out. Or there's a save point not too far away that you can always just go to, re-up, and keep moving on your way.
They're very generous with the save points, I've noticed.
Yeah.
I think the only intimidating room or rooms in the inverted castle is the both passageways that goes to the clock tower place, where it has those two golden armor guys.
That room, that always messes with me.
It gives me a hard time.
I just missed it, yeah. The first time I played this game, just died way too many times in that hall.
I know this isn't the inverted castle, but since we're kind of getting closer to wrapping up, I wanted to mention one of my favorite parts was fighting the succubus.
Yeah, that's really novel.
Yes.
It's a cool scene. And
it's one of those, it caught me off guard, because I was like, oh, we're going to have some story.
There's actually some extra plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Alucard...
environment, I have no idea why this... I should know this. Like, dodecahedron is like a purple, brown, black instead of a red. Like, why is that? Like, there's so many questions. I almost just walked out of the room. I was like, this is going to kill me. I'm going to walk over, save, and then come back.
It sounds actually like a creepypasta. Like... He's playing this game you picked up at a shady place, and the save point is the wrong color, and you get this weird scene. Like, it doesn't sound like a real story.
It sounds like what you like all these developers are now like, if you pirate my game, I'm gonna put this in the game so it eventually breaks everything.
Yeah.
And it was like, I almost felt like that what it was. I was like, well, I bought this off the PSN. Like, this is a real game. Like, why is it broken?
The build up to that fight is so cool, and I actually think that we as always, the voice acting in Symphony of the Night is laughably bad, but I actually think Alucard's taunt before that fight, the whole demon "Death is too good for you" line is pretty great.
Yeah, at the end, yeah, that's fantastic.
I actually thought that whole segment, I was really impressed and really happy with it. I was disappointed that there wasn't more of those.
Those little character moments, yeah.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. That was one of those, as soon as it happened, I was like, yep, there we go. That's easily top moment, or maybe going to be second top moment of this game for me. Like, I really enjoyed that.
The scenery
random
fight.
little things, like the confessional
Yes.
in one of the towers, and go in and then you get stabbed, and you're like, what the hell? Why? Like, why did that happen?
Yeah. Is there a reason for that?
I don't know. Maybe
No,
there
it's
is.
just Easter egg.
I love it. I love it because when it first happened to me, I was just like, wait, why? Can it happen again? And it doesn't trigger again. You're like, what just happened? What did I miss?
If you go to the other side, somebody else comes in and just sits there. You just stare at each other.
Yeah. I love it.
There's something about this game, like especially the way it's just like kind of hanging together. Like, people love breaking this game, and it's the kind of game, like, with the unfinished areas and stuff that appeared in, like, the Saturn version.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people really want to dig around there and find something like cutting room floor type stuff.
Yeah, and how there are places where you can break it and get higher percentages.
Yep.
Yeah.
Out of bounds switch. Yep.
Yeah. And there's also the goofy stuff, like in the inverted castle, in the library. All the enemies are Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
That was great.
It never even occurred to me.
Yeah,
The Tin Man, the Lion.
Wait, then what's the Shmoo then?
That one isn't. It's the other main ones are the core group. Yeah, the Shmoo is just a weird extra thing, like a new
He's
Medusa
just there to
head.
curse you and piss you off.
Yeah, exactly. But the others, it's a Wizard of Oz theme. And it's just random little things in the game that I'm sure... I don't know if that was in the original Japanese version. Maybe it was, or if that was just a thing in translation that they thought would be fun.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. That's actually awesome.
There is some incredible detail in, like, little bits of this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, we're going to come back to final thoughts. I kind of wanted to, since this is October, this was supposed to be our horror game that we were playing. I wanted to kind of touch on just a little bit horror in video games, specifically, it's a hard word, specifically what our favorite horror game is.
I'd
Let's
have
start.
to probably... I'll go. I'd say Lone Survivor, probably.
Which almost...
Great example.
That came in second for what we were going to play this month. So close.
That game's just
And-
shit.
Yeah, I played it originally on PC, and then when I got my PS4, I got it on there, because I didn't beat it on PC, so I went through and I got all the endings. And, like, kind of like we were talking about with Terranigma, it's fun when things are ambiguous enough that you can really dig in for a couple hours afterward and, like, still kind of live the game and figure things out in it, even though you're done playing it.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's perfect.
I'm bad with horror games. They really can mess with me. As in, like, no, it's the same thing with films and all the rest of it. I really buy in. So if atmosphere is good, it really messes with me. So, like, Silent Hill 2 is a game that I love, but it's hard for me to get through. I think Bloodborne is a lot of fun. It's kind of an average horror game, but it feels more contemporary. I loved Lone Survivor, but that's also a game that it was hard for me to get through because horror can really mess with me.
Yeah, dude, I had to take The Evil Within back because it was just stressing me out.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. I want to play that game, but I know that it's gonna have that kind of effect on me. But yeah, Silent Hill 2, I think, in terms of sound design in a horror game, is just incredible. The fact there's little details of you start walking from your car and you just start hearing other footsteps, and then you stop and the footsteps continue and then die out. And there's nothing else there. It's just a sound trigger of after you start walking, another thing, sound cue starts. But it just creates this oppressive horror of there's always something you can't see. And voice acting aside, that game has it through and through from start to finish.
That's
and it's amazing.
Really effective.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's one thing that I liked about. I really hate the game mechanics of Eternal Darkness, but the insanity meter of that game was so fun, and I couldn't finish it because I thought the game. I know someone's gonna hate me for saying it, but I really thought the game played horribly.
Yeah, I tried to play that this year and I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it really rough, really rough. But the world and the insanity and all the rest of it, again, the atmosphere is so cool. If you've been spooked out in that game and your meter's high and you walk into a room you know really well, and all of a sudden the walls are bleeding, or objects start moving and flying across the space, and that's another Eldritch horror game.
Another game that does a good job with that was the Thing game.
Oh yeah, I never played that. Was that good?
Yeah, it was fine. But they play with a lot of that, like, you having that kind of stress, and your character they can't handle the stress, so you start seeing the game change based off of how that's going.
That kind of Lovecraftian angle of horror you get.
Yeah, and that is very true. Like, any game that has some sort of Lovecraftian kind of roots to it.
Did you play Bloodborne yet, dog?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
You've got to play
so
it. That's what it is.
No,
Eldritch horror is Lovecraft.
So this is a complete side note, but this is going to be my complaint on it. I fully respect those games. I understand why people like them. The controls are garbage.
Don't do it. Have you tried Bloodborne yet, though?
I have not tried Bloodborne.
Bloodborne is that everyone who doesn't like the Dark Souls games likes Bloodborne because they make it faster and more arcade.
It's not control better.
It's better, but what I want is I want to take Devil May Cry controls. I want to take Ninja Gaiden controls. I want to take, put that
in my
type.
Heart, I platinumed all those games.
I don't think
I want that.
All those platinum games.
I want those. That control, that tight knit. I want to go into cancels. I want to do all these crazy things.
But you can't do that in a horror game because it's too empowering.
But I want it to be that empowering, but that just brutally difficult still. But I want to feel that when I die, it is my fault. I could have done something better. I screwed up. Granted, I have not played Bloodborne. I've only played Demon's Souls and first quarter-ish, first half-ish of Dark Souls.
And I'm not trying to naysay you here, but interestingly, that means you've played the two games that most people complain are the hardest point of entry.
And I don't have a problem with the difficulty. I enjoy the difficulty. I fully respect that difficulty.
Easy.
It's the fact that, and this is why I don't like Resident Evil. Moving like a tank and moving like garbage does not make a game good.
I hate tank controls.
And that's going back to the Eternal Darkness. That's what I can't do.
Yeah.
I fully respect that aspect of game design, but I just can't do it.
See, I don't even respect it. I think it's a cop-out. That's why I don't respect, I'm gonna get so much hate about it. I do not respect any of the Resident Evil games.
Yeesh.
And I understand why they did it because it's a product of their time, but anybody that's gonna come in to me and say the game's better because that is false.
Well, have you played the remake, which takes away the tank control?
I heard it breaks the game.
It does, because it was designed for tanks.
Yeah.
It's available.
And it's not one of those things. They didn't choose it to make it better. That's what they had, and that they did the best with what they could. Yeah. But it does not make it good. And anybody that's in 2015 that chooses to make a game with tank controls because I'm going to make horror good, you're an idiot.
Yeah, that's another reason why I don't have much experience with the survival horror genre, going back to our earlier point.
Yes, let's go back to that, please.
Like you, Chris, I have a really bad time with certain kinds of horror. Medical horror in particular just unnerves the crap out of me.
Yeah,
sure.
But
I get nauseous.
Yeah, me too. But in terms of two, one Parasite Eve, the original Parasite Eve, is one of my favorites.
Oh yeah.
At the time.
For me, the second one, yeah.
I love Parasite Eve 1. It's such a great blend of horror and what Square was doing at the time.
Yeah. It was good.
And also, this isn't a game that you can play anymore, unfortunately. But PT, the Silent Hills demo,
that
scared the crap out of me.
That was going to be mine.
I have a great story.
It is one of the most brilliantly executed.
It's fantastic.
Ever experienced.
So I downloaded PT when it came out, and it's both.
It is both.
But I didn't want to check it out. I wasn't really in the mood. This is around the same time I was having troubles with The Evil Within. But I told my wife, hey, I downloaded this demo. I heard it's really good. You should check it out. And I thought she was gonna have a rough time with it, but she was just stoned game. Like I was impressed.
Wow. Yeah.
I have a recording from when I played it, and on my PS4. It recorded my gameplay, and I'm scared to check that recording because I don't
You
want
should-
to experience it again.
So what we should do is we should give that to a certain somebody on RPG Fan, and they can post that to our YouTube page.
No, you don't. I wish that there had been a that we had recorded when I played it with a couple of friends of mine. I made a friend of mine play through PT right after I did, being like, "You need to experience this," and we screamed. All three of us simultaneously screamed just it was amazing.
That's what. Yeah, that's me in horror games. Any of them, like especially if I can get through them, but I will be the one yelling at my TV like, "Oh Jesus, why?"
And I was seeing things for days after.
Huh.
That's what it does to me.
Yeah, so for me, I do not like the horror genre at all. But it's not because it scares me. Actually, for the most part, it doesn't scare me at all. It's specifically movies, but to the games at the same point. Like, I see through it.
Yeah.
Feels cheap.
You see
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And so, like, I immediately like, well, why would you do that? That's idiotic. Like, don't do that. Don't leave that room. Don't leave that gun there. Don't do this. Don't split up. And I get so caught up in that. That's like, well, I wouldn't have died. That's stupid. You're all morons. You all deserve to die. And then I usually just get really mad. And then just like the horror part of it, it just doesn't grab me.
Doesn't ring true.
Yeah, so my favorite horror movie is Cabin in the Woods. Because,
Great film.
first of all, great film. But
Yes.
it takes those kind of cliche moments of like, let's split up. And they give a reason to it.
Yep.
They're like, oh, they chose not to, but somebody forced them to split up. And so it's one of those things, it's still not scary. But it's something that I enjoy that.
But it lets you sit through it and not hate the film for making those obvious choices and sticking
Right.
to those tropes.
Right, and then the same thing with PT. PT, first of all, you don't really have a choice. You're stuck in a corridor. Like you think about Silent Hills, and it's like, you know what? I'm gonna leave this town. No, I'm gonna give up. No, I'm not walking through this creepy graveyard with fog and a radio. That seems stupid.
It's funny.
Uh,
Silent Hill Downpour actually played that up, where it's like literally a chasm opens up and you can't leave the town.
Yeah, and I feel like you almost have to do that, like something there to like, yeah, there's a reason you can't leave. Because a lot of these, it's like, well, this is stupid. Like, at least I understand, like, hey, your daughter's captured. Yeah, I'd like to go protect my wife. I'd like to go protect my daughter. Like, any of those types of things, it's like, yeah, I can see that. But the hard part about movies and games is at some point, you have to move beyond what you want to do, and you have to do what the developers want you to do. And then, therefore, you lose that interaction. And PT was wonderful because it almost plays up the fact that you try to leave,
Right.
and then it's scary while doing that. And so it doesn't feel like you're losing control because, in my mind, you go to the end of that hallway, you walk to that door, it is you trying to leave.
Yeah, like you're constantly trying to escape,
Right.
and you can't.
Right. And then so that's where that becomes great for me. And it's a shame that it got deleted, and it's a shame that somehow they deleted it off my PS4.
What? It's still on mine.
Yeah, mine just disappeared. So I have no
Bummer.
idea. Yeah, I'm legitimately really mad about that.
Mine did too. I can't access it.
Yeah.
I haven't tried to access it, but it's still in my library.
You should double check that.
It's in my
Yeah.
library, but it will not.
Yeah, mine has the download arrow thing or whatever.
Wow.
Oh, so that means it got deleted and you just can't access it anymore.
Yeah. So, what about you, Marcos? What is your favorite horror game?
I don't play many horror games because they all give me heart attacks. But there was one particular one that I really enjoyed. Not so much playing, but watching was Rule of Rose.
Oh yeah, I've heard
Oh,
that.
that-
the Atlas game.
What is it?
It was an Atlas game, right?
That was I thought it was Capcom, but who knows? Maybe Konami.
Google now.
Somebody.
Yeah, like it was just a really weird game where this just was.
Yeah,
a game
it was
that
Atlas.
Based, yeah, it was based with like children on a zeppelin, and like little gremlins running around, and like other things. It was just
Okay.
generally a creepy game. Like it was unnerving, not like a scary,
Yeah.
but it was just really awkward. Even the end of the game felt really awkward to me. And there was just something about it that was really impressive. And what I really liked about it was the music style, which, I mean, again, this is music. I love music from games. It was just like string music, but it wasn't like pretty string music. It was really dissonant. So it just sounded like killer music half the time, and the other half was very I guess kind of creepy, but more like something's not right.
Totally.
Marcos, you were really into Fragile too, right?
Oh, that game?
Fragile
Yeah.
Dreams.
See,
Yeah.
Fragile Dreams, I do not consider that a horror game, even though the beginning is very the beginning has a little bit of a creepiness to it, especially in the train portion when the hands pop out of the window towards you.
Yeah.
But later on, it just became more of a, I don't want to say
Post-apocalyptic thing.
Yeah, it is a post-apocalyptic thing where everyone just started falling asleep, and when you fell asleep, that was it. I don't know if you died or just you were into a eternal coma of some kind, which is more or less death.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, essentially.
but I just found that as a very charming and beautiful game.
I
Which
thought
is-
it was really creepy.
The beginning, yeah, no, don't
Dude,
get me wrong. The beginning
And the
was-
ending with the
Yeah.
medical rooms and stuff.
that was creepy too. In the robot, well, spoilers, the merchant that's a robot.
Yeah.
The-
Yep.
That actually creeped me out when you found out that inside that what was it, the crib was like, and you know what it was? It was a dead baby.
Yep.
And I was just like, ooh, like that made me really like unnerved when you found out this robot was getting toys or whatever trinkets for a dead baby.
Yeah, I think that game really succeeded at being creepy because it really saved its cards and knew when to play them.
Yeah, it was timing. That was
Yeah.
really good about that.
It's interesting. We've all kind of been saying that for the horror games we've mentioned, it seems like the theme is atmosphere and
Yep.
this idea of like oppressive and horror instead of straight jump in your face scare.
Well,
As Josh was mentioning, even with those movies, it's like that's why I usually hate the genre too. It's just it feels like cheating.
yeah, because at the end of the day, if you have that build-up, that suspense, that background, that creepiness, that's something that can last
It infects,
throughout time.
It infects.
Right, and
It's
you
stuck in your head. It stays with you.
want it to be in your nightmares. You want to have a light flicker or a light go off. You don't want to go in the basement. You want something that just aching your belly. But if you have that jump scare, the next time you watch it, that's the same jump scare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not preying on any of your fears, your insecurities,
And,
You know it's
and
coming.
after a jump scare, you just laugh it off.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
and it'll never be scary ever again because you should remember that it's there.
You know, I
Um,
kind of want to play Until Dawn, especially for you made the Cabin in the Woods reference.
Yeah, I actually am
And,
very excited for basically the same reason.
Yeah,
it is quite
exactly.
interesting.
And the fact that everyone who's played it seems to be pretty high on that game for the most part.
I think it's the surprise game of the year.
I mean, according to Shuhei Yoshida.
So that is our special one episode only October Halloween episode.
Yeah, we did it.
That is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Normally we would have wrap-up thoughts, but I'm kind of terrified to do that since the whole thing was basically wrap-up thoughts.
Yeah.
But since this is our only podcast, we have not touched on the most important part, and that is what game we are playing next month. So in November, we'll be back to the 3 podcasts a month. I promise. You can hold me to that. And we are going to be playing Deus Ex Human Revolution. So that I'm super excited. I have never played
asked
that.
for this.
I've always wanted to play that. I'm interested to see how everybody kind of tackles the different possibilities with kind of play styles. We'll just put it that way.
Cool soundtrack.
Very
Well,
cool soundtrack.
Yep.
My music that I listen to is always a good soundtrack.
Yeah. You're
the
despicable,
worst.
Josh. You are despicable.
But yeah, we really appreciate you guys coming along for this interesting ride. We apologize we've kind of gotten off schedule, but we promise to do better in the future. As always, you guys can jump on to the boards and voice your thoughts. You can send us emails at retro@rpgfan.com. You can badger us on Twitter. I'm sure I'll badger you back if you do. And then please go on to iTunes or any of your podcast apps that you guys use. Please review. Please send glowing reviews. We love it. It makes us really enjoy what we're doing when we hear that you guys are enjoying it as well. And it makes it so other people can find us much easier. So that is going to do it for us at Retro Encounter, and we look forward to seeing you guys next month.
Bye.
Jump into the air and turn into a wolf.
Bye, friends.
Be the best
Adios.
vampire you can be.